cool thing about Sonic 3 is that it starts right after Sonic 2. There's a bunch of plot released in the manual that tells you it's only a few days after your fight with Robotnik on the Death Egg. Now, as you're supersonicking your way along the water, you run into Knuckles. He's a jerk. He's also your first antagonist that isn't a robot or Dr. Robotnik. Somehow he learned how to remove the Chaos Emeralds from you while you're super. He scoops them up and runs away. Honestly, that ability alone is more terrifying than anything Dr. Robotnik can ever make in my book. How does Knuckles know how to take Chaos Emeralds from a supersonic? We're already 10 seconds in, and I already have the motivation and passion to get my emeralds back. Those are mine. I worked for those. I had to deal with Tails in Sonic 2 just to get those Chaos Emeralds. Those are mine. Okay, so it's time to get them back, but unlike Sonic 2, checkpoint stands don't take you anywhere important. They're now bonus stages. And this isn't Sonic 1 or Sonic CD, so 50 rings at the end doesn't do anything. So what gives? It's time to explore. In exploring, you find these large ring portals. They're the newest edition of the game, and they are hidden behind boulders, secret walls, and little hideaways throughout each level. The cool thing about the pseudo 3D special stages is Tails doesn't get in the way this time. As a side note, this was the game that I've been talking about for the past 4 episodes that I played as I was a kid. Yet still to this day, I can feel my heart race in anxiety as I play these special stages. You don't control how fast Sonic moves, only the direction he goes. And as the special stage progresses, the pace quickens, meaning you have to react faster as time goes on. It feels as though I am defusing a bomb when I'm playing these special stages. So much tension. When I complete one, I can feel myself just like release that breath that's been pent up in me the entire time. I didn't even know I was holding my breath until I'm finished. I'm like, oh, Jesus, I did it. As per the usual, 7 Chaos Emeralds gets you supersonic, but no, still not Super Tails. Speaking of Tails, there's a cool feature where if you had a second controller, you could have a friend pilot Tails, and if you had the right amount of teamwork, you could actually help the one playing Sonic to get cool location bonuses you could only get if you were playing Tails. And yes, this game has a controllable flying Tails. Tails is kind of like the easy mode for Sonic 3. If you screw up trying to get to the location, you can simply just fly up there if you have enough stamina. For the sake of conversation, let's make this discussion about Sonic and Knuckles as well. Because honestly, Sonic 3 and Sonic & Knuckles were one big game, as in there's no difference in graphics, movesets, design, or anything. Because originally there was supposed to be only one game, however, due to the memory restrictions on cartridges, they were split into 2 games. Not only that, but when they were released for the Genesis, Sonic 3 was able to plug into Sonic & Knuckles, making Sonic 3 Knuckles. I talked about this in my Sonic 2 video, where I talked about how Sonic 2 could be plugged into the cartridge of Sonic & Knuckles, allowing for Knuckles in Sonic 2. I didn't have a Genesis growing up, so I played Sonic 3 and Knuckles on the computer from a Sonic and Knuckles collection that I've mentioned many times before. But when I did play the Genesis version, I heard different music, which was very strange. Again, I was faced with the Sonic CD problem of why is there different music than what I remember as a kid? Carnival Night, Ice Cap, and Launch Base were nothing of what I remember. Why? The answer to this was actually Michael Jackson. Although not credited, rumor has it that the King of Pop himself worked on the music in Sonic 3, yet pulled out after he heard the lack of quality the Genesis could offer. This is not confirmed by either Sega or the estate of our dearly departed Jackson, but Brad Buxer, as far as I can tell, that's how you pronounce his name, one of Jackson's piano players. He confirmed these rumors to an MTV reporter. Why Sega and Jackson remained silent is still a mystery, but the theory is that Jackson was going through some controversy of his own around the release of Sonic 3, and again with the poor music quality performance Michael Jackson felt the Genesis had, they decided to part ways and just not mention. So when Sega re-released the copy of Sonic 3 and Knuckles for the Sonic 3 and Knuckles collection, due to a weird behind the scenes, they ended up having to make different versions of Carnival Night, Ice Cap, and Launch Base's music. What is slightly irritating is when I go back and try to listen to the versions I grew up on, the not Michael Jackson versions, it's harder to find those in the original versions. Honestly, look up on YouTube comparisons between Michael Jackson's music and the music from Sonic 3, and you would think like, oh no, Michael Jackson didn't do the music on those, but then when you hear the choices of the Sonic 3 soundtrack and those tracks specifically that were his, you can really hear the similarities in music. He even had his same music team help out with creating that music. My favorite part of Sonic 3 and Knuckles is definitely the addition to the Chaos Emerald story. What I mean by that is, when Sonic is flown down by Tails from Launch Base Zone after preventing the Death Egg's relaunch, we see that Knuckles is regrettably still alive and kicking. He sneaks out of a small door and runs off. Doing the obvious thing, we, as Sonic and Tails, explore what the heck Knuckles was doing in that room. We see a portal that we recognized, but it's glowing different colors. We enter the ring and are teleported to what we will later know as Hidden Palace Zone. The Chaos Emeralds are taken from Sonic and Tails and placed in large pedestals on either side to the Master Emerald. This game also introduces the Master Emerald. Although there was a zone in Sonic 2 that did have the Master Emerald, but it was scrapped from the final game. To keep it fair, the game prevents us from being able to access Super Sonic through the entire game, as you can actually get Super Sonic by, I believe, Hydro City, or if not, Marble Hill, so the second or third zone. So the game developers didn't want you to be plowing through the rest of the game as Super Sonic, missing all the things that they had built. So we have to go back and play more special stages, the special stages that were in Sonic and Knuckles. But this time, instead of Super Sonic, you got Hyper Sonic. You essentially turned your Chaos Emeralds into Super Emeralds every time you went back and played a new special stage. So with Hyper Sonic, the game is just unfair at that point. When you double jump, you explode in a flash of light that destroys all badniks in views. The Super Emeralds also allow for Hyper Knuckles, which if you glide into a wall, the shock will also destroy badniks on screen. But to top it all off, Super Tails has his one and only appearance. He has super flickies that circle above him and will destroy badniks in screen. It's really adorable. But yes, this does mean that Super Knuckles is playable, which means that Super Sonic and Super Knuckles are both things derived from Chaos Emeralds, but poor Tails has to have Super Emeralds to become Super Tails. The Chaos Emerald sub-story finally comes to a head when Sonic and Tails finally catch up to Knuckles in Hidden Palace Zone and confront him head-on. The fun part about this is you actually see tapestries in the back of Super/Hyper Sonic fighting off against the final boss of this game. Sonic beats the ever-loving crap out of Knuckles, waking him from his brainwash. Apparently, the story has it that Knuckles was brainwashed by Dr. Robotnik into thinking that Sonic and Tails were there to capture the Master Emerald. All along, of course, Dr. Robotnik wanted his greedy hands on the Master Emerald. Seeing his opportunity with a distracted Knuckles, Dr. Robotnik makes his way to grab the Master Emerald. Knuckles protests, tries to fight Dr. Robotnik, but is electrocuted. Dr. Robotnik, of course, escapes with the Master Emerald, leaving Knuckles, Sonic, and Tails to have to work together to chase after Dr. Robotnik before he can use the Master Emerald to power his Death Egg. Yes, this has been what it's all about. The Death Egg from Sonic 2 is the primary focus of your antagonist in Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles. A little side note, in Sonic 3, if you play it by itself, the Death Egg explodes at the end of Launch Base Zone, whereas in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, it merely falls out of screen. In the title screen of Sonic and Knuckles, you actually see fall into the volcano of Angel Island. This volcano, of course, being Lava Reef Zone that later turns into Hidden Palace Zone. What's cool about this is that you can actually see the face of the Death Egg stuck in the ceiling of Lava Reef Zone. Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles pursue Dr. Eggman to Sky Sanctuary. Here, Knuckles, still hurting from his injuries of electrocution by the hands of Dr. Robotnik, helps Sonic and Tails get across a large gap so they can pursue Dr. Robotnik to the Death Egg. Here they face Robo-Robotniks, so little clones of Robotnik, but robots, and eventually have to face off against Mecha Sonic. Now, chronologically speaking, this I think is the fourth metal version of Sonic, because you have Silver Sonic in Sonic 2 8-bit, you have Mecha Sonic, Robo Sonic, or Silver Sonic, whatever you want to call it, from Sonic 2 16-bit, Metal Sonic from Sonic CD, so yes, this makes the fourth iteration of a metal version of Sonic. This one's called Mecha Sonic. What's cool about Mecha Sonic is that thanks to the power of the Master Emerald, he can actually turn into Super Mecha Sonic. This is actually something that I really like. I like when the metal versions have similar abilities to the actual version. Anyway, you defeat Mecha Sonic, and then you run up the collapsing Sky Sanctuary to finally jump on the Death Egg, now thanks to the power of the Master Emerald having launched itself back into orbit. You now get to play a different version of Death Egg Zone. This Death Egg Zone is completely different from the Sonic 2 Death Egg Zone, but there you are, running around in the Death Egg once again. I must point out here that Sonic 3 and Knuckles has a different format than any game so far, in the way that their bosses are structured. Usually you have 2 to 3 acts or zones of a level. At the end of that level, you would fight Dr. Robotnik in a mechanized contraption he made specifically to squash Sonic the Hedgehog. But what's different about Sonic 3 and Knuckles is that at the end of every act, there's a boss. So Act 1, there's a mini-boss that doesn't have Dr. Robotnik anywhere in sight, but clearly it's still made by Dr. Robotnik. And then the second act, there would be a final boss with Dr. Robotnik. This follows the Sonic 2 trend of not having a third act or a third zone per level. The reason I'm calling them acts or zones is because Sonic CD refers to them as a zone. So at the end of Death Egg Act 1, there's a very satisfying mini-boss, which transitions you into the second act of Death Egg Zone, which is really fun because it plays with gravity. You're either gravity up or gravity down. This is a mechanic that is incorporated in the final boss of Death Egg Zone, where you have to defeat the final boss by tricking the robot into getting hit due to a reversal of gravity. Now this is where it changes the format. You have rings to fight the final boss. It's Sonic running after Robotnik in one of the most impressive giant Robotnik robots ever constructed. What's different though is that you get to keep your rings from Death Egg Act 2. There was one point where I had 198 rings from Death Egg, so I got to keep all 198 rings going into the first part of the final boss. I really like the final boss from Sonic 3 and Knuckles, as it's, for me, unparalleled in scope and scale, or at least so far in the Sonic franchise. Yeah, in Sonic 2 you fight a giant robot, Robotnik, but this thing is huge. It's really quite intimidating getting to know the Master Emerald and the power of the Chaos Emeralds, and then seeing it used against you by a giant mustachioed robot. It's actually quite intimidating. So you defeat the giant Robotnik, he tries to run away with the Master Emerald once again, but then you attack his little portable flying machine enough for him to drop the Master Emerald. The next thing you know, Death Egg Zone explodes in a flash of light. Tails and the Master Emerald are nowhere to be seen, and Sonic flashes into Supersonic, or Hypersonic depending, and flies around an asteroid field just above the planet. Here you have to defeat two versions of a smaller Robo-Robotnik trying to escape with a Master Emerald. It's more of a time race rather than a difficulty race, as in you can't really get hurt as Supersonic or Hypersonic, but your ring count is going down. When you're Supersonic or Hypersonic, you lose 1 ring per second, and more times than not, you only have 50 rings, so you only have 50 seconds. Yes, there are rings to replenish yourself, but never enough to really stockpile, so you have to think about collecting rings as well as defeating the final boss. Once you do fight the final boss, Sonic grabs the Master Emerald and flies back down towards the planet. Here, Tails, again with the tornado, rescues Sonic and grabs the Master Emerald with a giant pulley from the back. They drop the Master Emerald back onto Angel Island and fly away. You can see Knuckles in the foreground, gratefully thanking Sonic and Tails for returning the Master Emerald to Angel Island. Now powered by the Master Emerald once again, Angel Island lifts into the sky and floats away. The credits roll as Sonic and Tails fly back to their home island, escorted by cute little birdies and swimming dolphins. Now, they did split up Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles, but it really only feels complete when you play Sonic 3 and Knuckles. To be honest, Launch Base Zone, yes, has the Death Egg falling down and exploding if you're playing only Sonic 3, but it feels very anticlimactic. Up to this point, Death Egg Zone, Metallic Madness, Scrap Brain Zone from Sonic 1 have all felt very Robotnik-esque, very mechanical, cold, calculated, clunky, but Launch Base Zone doesn't really feel that way. Yeah, with the alarm bells that you trigger that send more troops your way, it does feel a little like Robotnik has his hands completely taken over this section, but it doesn't have that same kind of imposing feel that Death Egg does. So for me, Sonic 3 by itself feels a little anticlimactic. And on the flip side, Sonic and Knuckles feels a bit too big too fast, almost. It feels better than Sonic 3, but it's definitely very, very climactic for such a short game comparison. And for me, me, the short aspect is definitely apparent with the Knuckles playthrough of Sonic and Knuckles. So, Knuckles playthrough takes place after Sonic 3 and Knuckles happenings. So, Knuckles has been broken from his brainwashing by the hands of Robotnik, and he's enjoying his newly peaceful Angel Island when one of the Robo-Robotniks, or the Robo-Badniks from Sky Sanctuary, comes down, drops a bomb in his presence, and essentially screws everything up. This, of course, if you're playing only Knuckles from Sonic and Knuckles and not Knuckles from Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Sonic 3 and Knuckles just starts out and faces the Robo-Robotnik through a more difficult version of each of the previous levels. Essentially, there are sections in each zone that Sonic can reach, but Knuckles can't, but then Knuckles can break through and reach that Sonic can't. So it's a interweaving section of zones that Knuckles and Sonic play through during the whole game. But if you're just playing Knuckles from Sonic and Knuckles, you only get Mushroom Hill, Flying Battery, Sandopolis, part of Lava Reef, and a little bit of Sky Sanctuary. You're missing out on like a level and a half of gameplay, so it feels a little shorter. But the benefit of it is you get to fight off against Super Mecha Sonic. This because Mecha Sonic re-steals the Master Emerald after he failed at the hands of Sonic from when you played through as Sonic from Sonic and Knuckles. You get the point. I've just always been impressed by how big this game is. I mean, compare it to Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 and Sonic CD even. Sonic 3 and Knuckles is definitely the biggest game of all these early Sonics. And while there may not be as much iconic music in Sonic 3 and Knuckles as there is in Sonic 2, because people love Casino Night Zone, people love Chemical Plant Zone, Green Hill Zone, there's so many classic songs that come from the first two. The music in Sonic 3 is still really good. This music in Sonic and Knuckles is still really good. Flying Battery Zone has a very moving melody in the second half. The big epic music of the final bosses is, well, just that. It's epic, it's imposing, it's powerful. And I mean, with the hand of Michael Jackson helping write the music for Sonic 3, you can tell why it has as good music as it does. So it all boils down to Sonic 3 and Knuckles is an expansive game with 3 different playable characters, each having a very unique playing experience. Sonic has his double jump, which affects the shields that no other character can do. The fire shield will blast him forward, the lightning shield will rocket him up, and the bubble shield have this fun little bouncing ball kind of quality to it that allow you to go higher up. Also, this is the game that introduces different kind of shields for different kind of levels. The lightning shield, famous for attracting rings to your character, and also allowing you to step on the electric tubes from Death Egg Zone. The fire shield, of course, allowing you resistance or immunity to anything fire-based, and the bubble shield being the fantastic thing that it is for not allowing you to drown. I remember playing Sonic 1, Sonic 2, and Sonic CD with the shield that looks like the bubble shield and thinking to myself, oh, I'm fine. I've got the bubble shield. I don't have to breathe. Oh, I'm dead now. Okay. Knuckles has the ability to climb walls, and Tails, of course, has the ability to fly. With this game grows the movesets, characters, the interaction, the story, and the Chaos Emerald lore. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, man, this guy's been talking about how much he loves Sonic the Hedgehog for a while now. Are we ever gonna get a negative criticism of any game? Yes. Yes, you are. I'll be making a collection video called Sonic Oddballs, most likely divided up into 2 parts. What I classify as a Sonic Oddball are things like Sonic Chaos, Sonic Triple Trouble, Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, all the titles that weren't mainstream Sonic titles like Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic CD, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, things that didn't fit the bill as far as a mainstream Sonic title. There are 2 kinds of Sonic Oddballs, well, 3 actually. The first kind is the legitimate games, the games that have merit to them. They may not be fantastic, but they're at least okay. Then there's the weird games like the educational-based Sonic games and all the really weird one-offs. And then you have the last kind of games, which is the most negative out of this group, and those are just the complete and utter failure games. So don't worry, there's going to be a shift in Sonic critique coming soon. But for now, those are my thoughts on Sonic 3, Sonic and Knuckles, also known as Sonic 3 and Knuckles. I can't possibly get into everything I loved about Sonic 3 and Knuckles because we'd be here for about 2 hours. I would just rather play the game itself than go on for that long. So hey ho, there you go. Regardless, those are my thoughts on Sonic 3 and Knuckles. I'll see you next time for another Draw-Thru.